Hello and welcome to Resource File Building with me, your host, Andy Woolley. In this video, we're going to get started by preparing our resource file, the template that you've downloaded from Excel, as you can see on the screen. This then we're going to start building out before it becomes very specific and you will go off in different directions to customize it. So for this video, we're literally just going to walk through the process of naming it. As I mentioned in previous videos, we're going to use our own brand as an example because it's literally ranking for next to nothing. And that way then we can demonstrate for you as a beginner or advanced that taking a new brand, you can basically build it out. So let's get started by obviously filling out the template. So as you can see there, let's just populate it with a name there. Today's date is the 11th of February 2021. So this date marks it to give you a realistic picture of the next coming, videos that will be rolled out over the next couple of days and weeks and months in order to record the journey and then prove the knowledge that both Itama and myself have acquired over the many years in order to put into this series. So obviously from this point of view now, we're going to do what we call in marketing positioning. So positioning is taking a snapshot of where your brand is and then realizing that once it's in this state, this health, this is what it ranks for, this is how many visitors it's getting, this is its domain score, then you understand then if that's where it is as a benchmark, I want to improve it, and any improvement then we're going to basically detail as we go along, and that is our journey. And therefore we know we can quantify this, which is why we use the resource file and we use data and analytics in order to look at it. We can see that we have gone from a standing position and we have built a better brand. It's something that is done relentlessly through lots of SEO managers, affiliate marketers do it. Anybody with an asset online is going to build it up because ultimately you want to drive more traffic back to your brand and either generate more sales or more leads. So part of that positioning is built around the 4 P's of the marketing mix: price, product, place, and promotion. So obviously if we look at each one of those, and we will incorporate them slowly within this file without it being as obvious as it may seem, but we will look at your product, whether that's a physical product or virtual product, whether it's actually a service, an event, or a personal brand maybe. We will always look at it from the eyes of a product or describe it as an entity. That way then we know that this is still applicable because it still needs words to describe it. So that's where the keywords analogy comes into play. Part of that product then is looking at how we roll out the different services that we'll build and compound it. And again, we need to make reference in here to ensure that if you're selling, say, for instance, fruit, then we need to be selling things like apples, oranges, and pears, and having the keywords that reflect each one of those that build in those individual content clusters to our main silo, which is about fruit. So that same analogy can be applied to your particular brand. If we turn this in and we look at the insight before action, ultimately this website is about developing value, both on a personal and a professional basis. So we're going to look at the many caveats that do that, from good interview techniques to understanding more about digital marketing, more about SEO, sharpening your website skills, all the things that start building your value that you can use and translate for a monetary gain. So that's the product. Obviously looking at the price, we will look at competitors. We'll see how we're positioned in the market. But from a keyword point of view, we're going to look at things that build it strategically, such as best price comparisons, pricing tables, whether we do proposals, whether we've got retainers, we're ad hoc, or we do quotations. So we will look at certain terminology relevant to the particular brand. And obviously you can interpret this and use it for your own brand, but by walking you through this journey, hopefully it becomes a bit more black and white. When we look at the place, which is obviously the things like your distribution channels, which could be simply just the internet. You might have bricks and mortar, you might have a factory, you might have a shop. Therefore, looking at the physical location as well will play a part, because if you're looking at local SEO, then we need to make sure we're ranking for location-based keywords. But ultimately, if you're on the internet, Are you within one country or are you global? Again, this will have a knock-on effect to the keywords that are chosen. And obviously the way that we'll structure it, from that keyword insight to the way the website needs to be developed and the architecture of it, and ultimately then the content that will need to be produced for those landing pages. And then we'll look at the various channels that are needed as well. As you can see here briefly within the resource file, we'll look at, like many of the social media channels, the extra touch points that give you the visibility to be found on the internet and draw your audience into your brand. And then the last one is promotion, what sort of advertising, sales and publicity you use in order to engage and amplify your brand and make that connection. So we use things like, obviously, Google Analytics, which is a sales funnel fundamentally from your audience acquisition behavior and conversions. So you're bringing your community in at the top and converting them to customers at the bottom. But that doesn't stop there. You want to take those customers and then turn them into advocates. So they're always loyal to the brand. Best example of that is the likes of Apple products, where as soon as they bring out another smartphone, some people will just buy it automatically. They won't question what additional features or anything are there. It's just because they know it's the next best thing to have. Having advocates ultimately builds into branding. Marketing is what we're talking about predominantly here in order to make sure that we're pushing forward our brand. And then sales are compounded by our efforts from marketing. So having that trilogy of three, sales, marketing, branding, is ultimately what our resource file is built on. It may not look glaringly obvious there, but as we go through the videos, I will pull out more and more reference in relation to digital marketing and therefore make it a clearer and more transparent approach for you to understand how this has real SEO value tied into solid digital marketing concepts and principles that we can put into your brand. So that's the 4 Ps. So let's get started. So obviously I've put in there, what are my main objectives? Well, from the insight before action, it's looking at every brand and realizing that whilst you could give 20 people the same resources and they would run 20 different businesses. Why? Because people make brands. What's your decision-making power compared to mine? How quickly do you come to a decision? What do you prioritize compared to me? Some of these things you can never quantify. There's no metrics or analytics out there. We have insight into some of the customers or our particular customer audience wants and needs, but some of those things that make us unique, which we call differentiation, which builds your value proposition, is different for every one of us. So for me, the main objective is developing, if I can spell it right, developing each individual's value. And what do I mean by that? I mean on both a personal and professional level. So they go hand in glove these days. Yes, you may be employed by somebody as an employee and you are translating your skills for monetary gain and developing your professional development along that brand that you're working for. Likewise, you could be self-employed or a freelancer and therefore you are building up your entities or particular clients, and as you're doing that, you're learning more skills. So you're building up your professional development. Okay, your CPD, continued professional development. Okay, but on the other side of that, you might want to build up your personal development as well. So skills that you're just using for yourself, you might wish to just be more versatile at using the website. You might even do what I'm doing right now, which is trying to build a personal brand, which is doing that by demonstrating my professional knowledge. So therefore, they go hand in glove. Okay, it's the very rhyme and reason we all do courses and things like that. So my main objective is to develop that in your individual value and show you how it can benefit both in a personal and a professional. I also have the ability to gain monetary additional sources of income. I'll word it right now. Additional sources of income. So that is my main aim as well within this website. Is I'm going to give lots of free advice, insight into some of those courses that I will be doing, but they will be monetized and they will start at all different prices to incorporate, to give value, but also more importantly to give the opportunity for those who wish to become from customers to advocates an opportunity to really hone in and develop their skills from the 20 plus years that I've gained in working in multiple projects across big and small clients, running my own company, being a freelancer, being an agency owner, and also then lecturing and teaching within multiple educational organizations. I do feel at my given age, I have acquired a lot of knowledge and I want to translate that back to other people, predominantly free, but ultimately there will be a point where some of this will translate into a monetary term. So gaining monetary or additional sources of income, I think, is a fair point with any sort of website, and you could do that for yourself, easily within your product or service. So that's the next one. Obviously I'm giving value, I'm looking to get an income. For the moment, I think that's more than comfortable. I'm sure as we progress I will return to these, because that will be part of the reviewing process, and look at how that could change. Maybe it is a case of there's other objectives. Maybe it's start a podcast. Maybe it's a blog. Maybe it's a diary. Maybe it's a webinar series. I don't know yet. Those are opportunities that might come down the road. So my main obstacles at the moment is zero traffic. Okay, so unlike so many videos that are on the internet at the moment, I'm being totally candid and honest with you. My website ranks for nothing. So let's have a look at the proof of the pudding. Let's have a look at SEMrush, which is a premium package I use. I've put the domain name in there, as you can see, insightbeforeaction.com, and it's got an authority score of 4, which as we know is rubbish. It currently ranks for 0 traffic, and you can see it's a blank line on everything there, and that's fine, because I want you to understand and believe that this process can work from a standing position. We're not looking at an aged domain. We're not looking at a pre-bought website. We're not looking at an existing company. We're looking at something that's brand new to prove this principle. Okay, so if we look in the UK, obviously that's where I'm based. You can see it still translates right across the board. There's no data that's been accumulated. That will come in time. I've got no problem realizing that. This is a process I've done for numerous clients over the years, but not put it to video. And the only way I thought to do that is looking inwards, using my own brand as the example. So let's have a look at the traffic analysis. And all this builds up your auditing, which is quite common within SEO. But in marketing, we call it positioning, by looking at where you are in order to gain an advantage and describe then how you're going to move forward. So again, you can see nothing is being recorded here. I will link this up in time now through Google Analytics, so we have a better insight of what's actually happening. And organic research, does that give me anything in the way of keywords and traffic? Because this is a much more visual way, and I can also pull out keywords from here, which will be done in time. And you can see it's a blank canvas. The US does actually rank for one keyword there, which is, what does CRO mean in marketing? Conversion rate optimization. That is a blog that's already on there, but nothing has been promoted. Yes, the website, as you can see, has been built. There are a number of blogs on there which have been translated from another site actually, but we will exponentially be building this over time, because as it stands at the moment, none of this website has any of the right keywords sprinkled in it. Now that's not technically true. I'll tell you for why. Is that when you go out and you start building your entity, you know your industry, you know the marketplace you're within. So from a holistic point of view, you're naturally going to use words that are some of the chosen keywords in order to start driving you forward. So for me, I already knew that value is a keyword that's going to be used in here. Insight is another keyword I'm going to use in here. So if I do Control F and I type in insight, you can see here it is already mentioned 5 times on the page. I've put it in the H1 tag and also in some of the body text. And it's further down the page, as you can see here. It's obviously within the domain name as well. Okay, so we will do our fact checking, which is part of the review process, as we develop these keywords and then come to look at how they've been implemented within the website, which is the third part of everything, implementation, to ensure that we are actually putting the chosen keywords in the right place to get the right traffic, because you have two masters here, right? The first one is the search engines. The second one is your target audience. But you don't get to your target audience until you've gone through the search engines. So once their spiders have crawled your website, pulled out what they consider as the strategic keywords that are relevant to the search queries that are being entered in by the user, then you get the opportunity to be ranked on the internet, and obviously higher and preferably on page 1, and therefore you're more visible in front of your potential customers. So you need to go through that gateway. We need to make sure that the site architecture and where we place keywords is fundamentally thought through and then implemented correctly. And we will follow this through the series to make sure that is the case. So as you can see, we've got nothing here. If I come into the keyword overview, again, it'll be a blank page, because as you can see, for the United Kingdom, just looking on desktop, absolutely nothing. If I look on mobile, it's nothing as well. So I don't rank for any SERPs, any keywords, so no search volume or keyword difficulty is coming up. And that's great, because now we know this is the worst case scenario. This is the worst place we can be in, is because we have no audience and we're not drawing anything. So coming back into our report here, we will we'll keep score. We can put in here, currently ranks for no keywords and has an authority score of 4. I'll date that as well. So I always like to date things. So when I look back and I see the progress being gained, it gives me a benchmark to understand how long that took to come about. And that's good practice. And I'll tell you for why. 2 reasons. If I was doing this for a client, not myself being the client in this particular case, then I would be able to show them that the effort we've put in has translated over time to that particular outcome. And the second reason then is, once they see that path of starting somewhere, putting time and effort in, resource, the monies, the efforts behind it, and then getting the outcome, that time frame to some extent can be shortened if they increase the resource. So when you have like SEO managers coming in and doing a lot of this due diligence, because they are fundamentally the project manager within your website, delegating to the web design, delegating to the keywords that need to be used within content writing, and then the overall site architecture and the feel of the website in order to be appealing to the search engines, and also to the end user by using like UX, customer experience, to ensure that things actually work better, and then looking at the conversions to ensure that there's a better way the information is served on the page, so that more customers are coming from the top of your sales funnel to the bottom of your sales funnel. Hope that makes sense. So therefore, I keep a log of dates, because that gives me a mind's eye of how long these sort of things are kicking in. More so with keywords, because it can take a while for them to be crawled, indexed through your sitemaps, for the search engines to recognize they have value, increase your rankings, and then get to that hockey stick effect where you will rank higher over time. So the next part of this task is basically for me to write down some of those holistic keywords I mentioned earlier, things I already know. So I want to put personal value as a keyword. And all these will be quantified in our next part of the series, which is basically doing the research. Personal value. I also want professional value. I also want digital marketing, which is my main field of speciality. I also want to put in digital marketing courses, because that's something I've been doing for the last couple of years, both creating and teaching, but I would like to also sell some of them in a niche area of that market that afford people more opportunity to go into that one particular direction. And I notice that very much on the internet at the moment. Specialism is really breaking out there at the moment, be that in social media, conversion rate optimization, or website development. And SEO is very much the glue that joins it all together, which is why it's such a profound element within our marketplace. So I think that's enough for the moment. Yes, I could probably do more, but I think personal branding, maybe, yeah, I wouldn't mind ranking for something around that element, trying to prove, or practice what I preach by all accounts. So I'm happy there. Okay, So the next part of this now is the website login. Obviously mine has already got an SSL certificate, which is a HTTPS as opposed to HTTP, and you do need that because it does help as a ranking factor. I don't bother with the www. It's incidental these days. Most search engines, Google predominantly, are smart enough to know the difference with and without. And 9 times out of 10, most of the assets we set up these days do not bother asking for it. So I choose not to as a naming convention. And I think this is quite important as we go forward, is realizing naming conventions are very important. Hold that thought. I will come back to you in a minute regarding why. Insight before action.com. Because again, going from standing position, .com was strategically chosen here. Insight before action, because it's the very thing I believe in, is having the insight, the knowledge, the ability to make informed decisions before you go and put the action to it, because that action is going to cost you time and money. And if you go in the wrong direction or do the wrong results, and I see it with numerous clients that I've dealt with over the years, they've written tons and tons of content, but they didn't do any keyword research. So therefore it was never going to connect with the intended audience, and therefore they didn't get the result they're after. But they spent a lot of money and they wasted a lot of time. So having the insight before the action is the key ingredients, hence the name. And .com, because I'm looking to go beyond the UK for this and widen my market as far as I can. Okay, obviously it's a WordPress site, as I'm sure some of you savvy viewers are already aware. You could probably check that out and you'd know that anyway. So obviously the username, password you put in there. I'm not going to do that obviously for the sake of the video here, but the whole essence of this one page is to give you the ability, when you're either doing it for yourself or you're doing it on behalf of a client, is that when something's about to change, and that's why we're talking about positioning, and it's going to change because you're going to start implementing this change, you need to remember all the key facts. And it's surprising how that gets lost quite quickly. So if you start at the beginning and have good housekeeping techniques, it does serve you well. Okay, and then any additional user, you might put them in there and give their names as well. I do tend to do that with a lot of projects I've worked on to ensure that not only I have access, but other people do as well. And you might have different roles for those, which obviously if you've got a WordPress site, you can assign to them, and therefore it's easy enough then to share a document like this and just take out your admin rights. I also create normally a test account as well, so that way, or a test user, so that way then I can go and see what it's like, both as either a customer or a subscriber, and I can see what the user experience is like. But we will talk about that down the road within the review section, where basically we start litmus testing the website to see, is it fit for purpose. FTP, if you haven't got server access, FTP might be required. This is especially the case over the years where it's not my website. I'm doing it on a client's behalf. I've contacted and talked to their website team, but they only provide me FTP access because it's a more secure way. And obviously you can have either secure, which is SFTP, or they might even do it through an SSH, another gateway. So all this sort of factual information is kind of what you put here. Plus, in time now, we will also build out our tracking information, which is our Google Analytics Search Console, and I'll also add another one in there, which is a Google Tag Manager as well. Again, these will be videos coming down the road as we walk through our entity, our website. We will ensure that we have done all our due diligence, that we can record the information, because as the actions play out, both from our end and also from that of a customer. So from our end, Search Console really educates us because it tells us about the health of the website. From the customer's point of view, it's Google Analytics, tells us how they're interacting with the brand. We can ensure that we can monitor all that data, that valuable data, looking through our review process, which is here. We can then make subsequent recommendations. Obviously, if you're doing it for yourself, you might just keep it as a log and that guides you as you're going forward. But if you're doing this on behalf of a client, normally there's some sort of reporting that needs to be done on a month-by-month basis to show progress. The next part then is obviously contacts and emails in there. And again, this is only a blueprint. You might need more down there, and if so, you could easily, this is an editable document, it's not locked in any way, you could just add more boxes in there if you needed to ensure that you've got the names of everybody within the team who are going to do this, maybe from your content writers, your web developers, and obviously your marketing manager or SEO manager. You could have quite a large team. So therefore it pays to have all their contact details there, because at some point as you move through this as a project, you're going to need to reach out to the individuals to get stuff done. So I've just put that there temporary at the moment. Social media, we will come in here and we will start adding all that in as well. Again, I have not set those up for this particular brand. That will happen, and as I come back to this, I'm not going to do it in real time view, it's pointless. When we come back and review this, you'll see that this will be heavily populated. So just before I do disappear on here, there is another element that I talk about quite a lot when it comes to a positioning, a starting position. So I normally type into the internet the chosen words within a domain name. So you can see that, just to prove, total transparency here, there's the domain name, there's the title tag, there's the meta description as it stands at the moment. That's all it ranks for. So there is no additional assets, as you can see underneath. If I want to, be absolutely truthful, there's the domain name. Let's do a site check. And I've got to be honest, I don't know. So site, semicolon. And this tells me there's 106 assets on there at the moment. Right, okay, that is all the blogs that have just recently been pulled across. But I don't rank for anything, as you've very much seen in the SEMrush report. So it means that the due diligence of me already building up an entity to continuing with you through this series. You can see we've just basically touched on the homepage. In the next part now, because it's all color-coded, we will be doing the big section, which is starting the research. So look forward to seeing you in the next videos.